Rogers says he took the drug on a trip to Peru back in 2020. The plant-based psychedelic is known as ayahuasca. It's usually brewed into a tea. You may have heard about it. They've been doing it for thousands of years in a traditional healing method in Central and South America. It also contains DMT. It's illegal in the U.S. and is one of the most psychoactive chemicals known to man, although, fun fact, our brains do produce trace amounts of it naturally. The former Super Bowl champ told the podcast that he had noticed significant changes in his relationship with the Packers ever since he took the drug, and Rogers believed it helped him win MVP. And he's not alone. The tide is really changing in this country, especially in Hollywood. Chris Rock, Miley Cyrus, among those who have talked about their use of psychedelics. Dr. Lynn Marie Morski is the president of the Psychedelic Medicine Association. She joins us live on Prime. Good evening.
Thanks so much for having me, Paul.
Lynn, we've been talking a lot about this, psychedelics as therapy. We had a guest on NewsNation Tonight the other night, a veteran who was taking it. The Department of Veteran Affairs are recommending it in some cases to treat mental illness like PTSD. Do you think we're on the cusp of this becoming something mainstream?
Absolutely. We are on the cusp of it becoming FDA approved in the case of MDMA, which is specifically being looked at for PTSD, as you mentioned, with the veterans. We're on the brink of psilocybin being approved as well for things like treatment-resistant depression. The first NIH grant has gone out to investigate psilocybin for tobacco cessation. So there are a lot of fronts that these are being investigated on, and we are getting ever closer to these being FDA approved so they can be used as the medicines that they are.
What is it about psilocybin or DMT in ayahuasca's case that rewires our brains and can treat things like depression or anxiety?
So a lot of these affect the serotonin receptors, and they also affect what's called the default mode network. And as Aaron Rodgers was saying, self-love, kind of the opposite of that is that negative voice that we have in our head that's always talking to us in ways that are not very kind. And that's generally what we think of the default mode network as. And psychedelics have the ability to kind of break that network up, shake things up, increase connectivity between different parts of the brain so that we can form new thought patterns. And that's really helpful for things like depression, because in depression, very often people have gotten in kind of a psychological rut, feeling very down, lots of negative self-talk. And like he said, psychedelics have the ability to change your outlook, to decrease some of that negative self-talk, increase self-love, and rewrite some of those patterns.
I don't want to get too in the weeds on this, but I want to talk a little bit about legalization, because the way that pot sort of took off in this country, in a decade, it went from 2 legal states to 19. It's legal in some capacity, and I think 37 now. But the reason for that seemed to be money. Like, people were interested in making money off the sale of pot, rather. This psychedelics, it's not picking up as quickly, but it is becoming legal or decriminalized in some cities. Do you think it has that sort of national appeal, and do you think it's headed somewhere? Can we make money off of it?
Well, absolutely. But I think psychedelics has gone about it a different route. Psychedelics is going about it the medical route. We're going with the FDA approval route, as opposed to cannabis that went straight legalization on more of a recreational side. So, yeah, I think there will be widespread acceptance, but that may be because the FDA has to look at rescheduling things. A lot of these are Schedule I substances, which means that they are completely illegal for us to have or use. They may have to reschedule things when the FDA approves them. And so it will look probably different from cannabis, but there are a number of companies that are looking to make specific medications based on psychedelic formulas so that psychedelics aren't just available like, Mr. Rogers says he went down to Central or South America. These pharmaceutical companies are looking at making formulations that are slightly more accessible to people who may not have that kind of access.
All right, last question for you, Lynn. If people are interested in trying a psychedelic experience, maybe they've tried other methods, SSRIs, therapy, nothing is working, but they don't want to go on a South American expedition, what would you recommend they try or recommend they do?
Well, at this point, there's only one legal psychedelic medicine in the United States, and that's ketamine. And that's a drug that has been used as an anesthetic for years and now is being used in mental health applications. It's really great in treatment-resistant depression. It's also great for those who are experiencing suicidality. So that is something that has a lot of applications. And if you are not looking to go outside of the United States, ketamine is really the only legal option outside of going to clinicaltrials.gov and looking to see if there's a clinical trial on a psychedelic that may be addressing the condition that you're wishing to address.
Lynn Marie Morski, thank you for your expertise on this.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.